points. Defense gets a big stop. Lions are driving again, down to the 30-yard line, sack, fumble. Colts go score. You get the ball back. The first play, you get the ball back, pick six. Game just kind of got out of hand at that point, and that was really a turning point. We talked about it all week. You knew it was really going to come down to the turnover differential. Phillip Rivers is a guy who's shown in the past couple years that he's going to give you a chance to take the ball away. The Lions defense just could not figure out a way to get the offense an extra possession. That really turned out to be the difference.
The turnovers were certainly important today. 2 turnovers by the Lions in the second half, like you said. That fumble by Matthew Stafford was the Lions' first fumble this season. The Lions had not yet fumbled, but this was a tough Colts defense that they were playing. The Colts defense only allowed 21 points by the Lions. They held the Lions to 29 rushing yards, forced 2 turnovers, and had 5 sacks. What did you see from this Colts defense today, TJ?
It honestly looked like a lot of confusion. I think in the first quarter, the Colts had a big sack on a third down, I believe it was. Looked like the offensive line wasn't on the same page, whether it was an early snap or guys just being laid off the ball. Colts got a good jump, came in for a big sack to force the Lions to punt. You get to the second half, you see some more kind of communication breakdowns where the Colts were doing a lot of things where they're stunting guys, and they don't really have many game records. I know they've got DeForest Buckner from San Fran, who's a really good inside rusher, and Justin Houston's obviously a guy who's been producing at a high level for a long time in this league. But those are guys that they're not all pro type guys. They're just solid players. But the Lions, for some reason, when the Colts were starting to get into their blitz packages and Darius Leonard standing in the middle of defense and rushing 5 and twisting and stunting, it just looked like the communication wasn't there really up front. I thought really for the most part this season, the Lions offensive line, whether what combo they're playing, who's playing where, and I know Vaitai today kind of bumped back out to right tackle. Joe Dahl goes into right guard. Those guys really haven't had a whole lot of practice time and game time to play next to each other. Sometimes it takes you a while to get used to that chemistry and know the guys where it just becomes natural. It's second nature. You don't have to talk to the guys. You just trust him to do his job. So I think today might have hurt them a little bit having a different combo at O-line, but I thought the Colts really did an awesome job, a great job of mixing up their pressures and mixing up their stunts and trying to find a way to get a guy free, and that's what we saw happen on the big sack fumble, early in the third quarter there. Darius Leonard lines up over the center. They run a stunt on the left side of the line. He loops all the way around, is able to get home and force a turnover, which really, for me, not only did it kill the momentum that the Lions had at that point, but it really turned out to be, from the Colts' perspective, probably the play of the game.
Absolutely. This Colts defense was second in the league coming into this game, but we talked on the pregame show how a lot of their statistics came against offenses that aren't having good seasons. They come into this game and they put on quite the performance against the Detroit Lions. Do you feel like this Colts defense is the real deal, or the Lions offense just didn't have what it took today?
A combination of both. I think the Colts are definitely a team that's highly underrated on the defensive side of the ball. Like you said, they really haven't had a very explosive offense that they've had to go against this year, but they've just been playing great complementary football, whether it's stopping the run or their guys locking down receivers in the back end of the field. The Lions, though, I think when you look at today's game, it was a little frustrating because it almost seemed like instead of taking advantage of what other teams did to beat the Colts, the Lions just said, we're going to do what we've been doing, and we're going to trust, our O-line against your D-line, and we're going to try to run the ball, and we're going to try to do this and run, play action, which I think probably hurt them a little bit. The first half, I think they had something like 8 rushing yards, and that's tough to stay balanced as an offense when you're doing that. And you look at, the stats, the running backs, you take out Jamal Agnew's 11-yard run and Matthew Stafford's 10-yard run, DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson combined for 11 carries for 8 yards. And that's definitely a step back for this offense. That's something that they obviously pride themselves on. When you hear Coach Patricia talk and Stafford talk and the offensive linemen talk, they want to run the ball, they want to stay balanced, and that's how they become an explosive offense. And when you're not able to run the ball like that, it really puts your quarterback in a bind where you see Stafford might be feeling the pressure that he has to do it all himself, and that's pretty much what we saw today.
Well, part of it is that they got so far behind there that they, had to pass the ball. So they weren't taking as many attempts at running the ball. But do you think that lack of production in the run game, particularly early in the game before they really fell behind too much, was a result of, execution in the run game or just not carrying the ball enough, not trying to run the ball enough, or what would you stack that up to?
Yeah, I think it's almost like this offense the past couple weeks, they had so much confidence and momentum after having a big day against Jacksonville and then going out against Atlanta and not having a great day rushing the ball, but doing enough to keep the defense honest. To where they can't just rush the passer and drop a bunch of guys in coverage. They did enough. It kind of seemed like, from my perspective, though, that it was almost too predictable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get the 1st and 10. Everybody, I know me certainly sitting at home is probably, I said, here comes another Adrian Peterson run, and it's 1 yard gain. And then 2nd and 9. Here's probably another run too, and there, 1 yard run, and now it's 3rd and 8, and that just puts your defense that just puts your offense in a bind. Now it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 every drive, and Matthew Stafford, Marvin Jones, T.J. Hawk, somebody make a play, guys. We got to keep this drive going. So for me, I'd like to see a little bit more creativity, out of this offense. They've got a lot of speed with guys like DeAndre Swift and Jamal Agnew and Marvin Hall on the outside. I'd like to see them utilize that a little bit more early in the games to make teams kind of guess, put them in a bind saying, we don't know what's happening. Because right now it almost seems like, hey, 1st and 10 Lions, it's probably going to be an Adrian Peterson dive right up the middle, and they're going to try to go get 3-4 yards and get the drive going. They just couldn't get anything going today, and I think when they review this game and they kind of go back, I think from the coaches and the players' perspective, it's going to be, let's try to mix it up a little bit more because we've kind of been a little too predictable in my mind on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, TJ, Coach Patricia just came to the podium to talk with reporters about this game and what he thought of his team's performance against the Colts. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
All right. Obviously, not a very good game by us today, but give Indianapolis credit. They played well in all 3 phases. They were able to capitalize on some of the mistakes that we made and, certainly took control of the game, and just kept that all the way through the second half. So we got to just keep working. We got to keep, grinding here to get better. We got a big game this week. And, from that standpoint, we got to learn from the mistakes today, understand, what Indianapolis did well against us. And we got to get that fixed and go forward from there.
Talked about control in that statement. In the first half, Indianapolis, the control was really lopsided. I think 22 minutes to 8, your offense couldn't stay on the field. How much stress, strain does that put on a defense, not just in the first half, but continuing on in the second half with fatigue?
Well, I think, certainly in the first half, I thought we had some opportunities there that we really missed. We really had a chance to kind of settle things down. We didn't do that. We went at halftime understanding that, we got to play 60 minutes. We'd have another 30 minutes of football, and we needed to reset and go out and play better. Thought we started to turn it a little bit that way, but, again, give Indianapolis credit. They were able to sustain it and, push it all the way through to the end. So it is certainly difficult, in those situations. You want to try to do your best to stay balanced all the way through the game. And when that's not happening, it kind of just gets a little bit away from you in those situations.
And there was a critical moment there in the second quarter. You had the 3rd down stop on the sack, and there was a bit of a scuffle after the play. The flag was on Danny Shelton. I'm just wondering, can you clarify, because that flag came out so far after the actual play, it didn't make a lot of sense from the press box.
Yeah, we obviously can't get a penalty in that situation. Really, I think it was more of the act during the play. I think it just, I don't know if they threw it later than what it looked like. So we can't have those situations. Those are, certainly not in that situation where it's critical. We got them stopped, and then obviously give them a second chance. You give Phillip Rivers a second chance, and, they got points out of it. So we got to play better. We got to play smarter in those situations.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Justin Rose. Hey, Matt, after a couple of weeks of progress, did you feel like this was a step back for your team? And what was the biggest disappointment for you today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I think, we understand every single week the teams we play get better. As the season goes on in the NFL, you got to improve. no one stays the same. Everyone, gets better and the competition gets harder. So from that aspect of it, we got a lot of work to do. We got to go back to work and just kind of keep grinding it out here. And, we got to play better. We got to coach better and we got to play better. That's the bottom line. Like I said, give Indianapolis credit. They coached and played better than we did today, and we got to go back to work.
And Mark talks about consistency. You guys have talked about that for years now. What is it about consistency that is so hard to find?
Yeah, I think for us, certainly today was not a very consistent game for us. So, that's something we can look at and say we got to improve that. We got to get better at that. So, it's always hard. It's the NFL. Things are competitive every single week. There's great players on both sides of the ball. And like I said, Indianapolis was, they're a great team. They're really good in all three phases. They play very good complementary football, and they did that today.
Hey, Matt, how are you? Why do you feel like your team struggles so much at home?
Obviously just kind of focused on today. We just didn't play well enough today. Like I said, give Indianapolis credit. They outplayed us. They outcoached us. We gotta go back to work and we gotta get it better.
But that seems to keep happening when you play at a play. Coaches always say, players always say you gotta win your home games, and it always seems like that happens when you're at home. This is 7 in a row now. So I'm just trying to understand why maybe that keeps happening. That you are getting maybe outcoached, outplayed, day in, day out.
Yeah, like I said, just let's give Indianapolis credit for today. They did a great job. We didn't play well enough today.
And with Kenny Golladay, what level of seriousness, what level of concern do you have that this is maybe a serious injury for him?
I think we had a couple things today that we got to, I'll sort through and find out when I get more information.
Thanks, man.
All right, time for 2 more. Dave and then Chris.
Matt, real quick, I just wanted to clarify your understanding on the Shelton penalty was it was the takedown on the sack. It wasn't something where the pushing and shoving was going on.
Yeah, that was, I think it was more the play itself.
Okay. And then can you explain the offensive line rotation today? Just, why bench Crosby, why go with Vaitai and the lineup that you did?
Yeah, I think for us, obviously, we're always going to try to do what we think is right to help us win, and certainly with some of the practice situations we had this week and understanding where we were with deck and then, some of the movement that we had during the course of the week of preparation, we just thought it was better to kind of leave everybody where they were. We got 6 guys that have started for us, and, we have confidence in all those guys.
All right, and then the last thing for me, I guess the critical eye would look at sort of what you guys have done here and say you beat a couple 1-win teams and you lose to a team that's, above 500. You've struggled against some of these teams. How do you sort of answer that in terms of, your ability to compete with these, above average teams in the NFL?
I think again for us, everybody's, every game is hard in the NFL. Every team is good, and there's a lot of talent. And next week's team, that'll be harder than this week because every week, people get better. So, the records, we can't look at that all the time. We just try to do the best we can to win that week.
All right, thank you.
All right, Chris, last question.
Hey, Matt, you always talk about complementary football. You mentioned it. You guys weren't able to get the run game going at all today. Just wondering if something happened up there that you noticed that they were doing particularly well that didn't let you go on, how much that held you back?
Yeah, obviously they have a very good run defense. They've been that way all year. I think they do a phenomenal job. They've got good players up there. Some movement up front that gave us some issues, and I thought they did a good job with their pressure calls too. They really hit some of those and created some negative plays against us. So we got to handle all that. We got to do a better job of it, and we got to be able to run the ball. That's just the bottom line.
And then you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it looked like on the 2-point conversion and maybe one other play, you guys were short a guy on defense. I don't know if you had any thoughts on those.
I think we had a bad substitution on that situation, and communication needs to be better there.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Great, thanks, Coach.
Obviously, a very disappointed head coach after that loss to Indianapolis. TJ, I wanted you to get your perspective on one thing that Coach talked about. He talked about that penalty on Danny Shelton in the first half of this game. For me, that was a real momentum swing in the first half. It resulted in the Lions, rather than getting a punt out of the play, the Colts got a score out of the play, and the wheels kind of came off in the first half after that play. Coach talked about it. He said that he felt like the flag was for the actual play itself, although the flag was thrown a little bit later. What was your perspective on that play?
Well, I know Coach can't say it. Obviously, as a coach in the NFL, you can't criticize refs, but I can say it. I thought it was a trash penalty. I thought, listen, if you're calling Danny Shelton for the initial contact, the initial hit, yes, the whistle did blow. There was guys kind of being shoved from all over the place. As Danny Shelton was going to the ground, though, he was behind Phillip Rivers, and halfway down the ground, he kind of threw his hands up saying it wasn't an egregious tackle. It wasn't a body slam. It wasn't anything cheap. It wasn't anything dirty. Obviously, the Colts offense, the offensive line took exception to it. They got in somebody else's face. Danny Shelton was jogging to the sideline, and then what seemed like to be 30 seconds after the play, you see a flag come out. And I think everybody sitting at home and watching the game said, oh, one of the Colts players must have, got upset, threw a punch, pushed the guy or whatever. And then they called Danny Shelton for the penalty. You're saying, wait, if it was on the initial hit, there's two referees standing right next to Phillip Rivers that literally didn't do anything. They watched and made sure everybody got up clean. Nothing happened. And then long story short, in my mind, if you think it's a late hit, you throw the flag right now. You do not throw that flag 20 to 30 seconds after the play and just say, oh, these guys are upset, we have to make a call. And that's kind of what it seemed like for me. There's going to be skirmishes in football games. There's going to be guys that disagree with, and certainly I was always a guy that if I felt like my quarterback took an unnecessary hit, you're going to try to do something about it. But in that skirmish and that scrum that we saw, every replay that I saw, every view, there was nothing egregious. There wasn't any punches thrown. There wasn't anybody, throwing anybody to the ground. So in my mind, I thought it was a weak call. I thought that we would see a little bit more from Coach Patricia on the sideline, at least demanding some sort of explanation, because it almost seemed like, here's the call, sorry, it's supposed to be 4th and 20. Guess what? Now it's 1st and 10. Colts go down, free 7 points. That was a big call in this game. And in my mind, you don't make that call. Not when it's both teams kind of in each other's faces and shoving and pushing and disagreeing. You don't make that call. You get the guys to the sideline. You go to the next play. In my mind, it should have been 4th and 20 line, should have got the ball back with the punt.
Well, you still do have to go to the sideline and try to avoid those skirmishes when you can. Maybe the flag doesn't get thrown if the skirmish doesn't end up happening, even if the flag was for the actual play itself. Regardless, it was a swing in this game, but it wasn't the only play that swung for the Colts. The Colts really played strong for the majority of this game. For me, TJ, a big part of this game was the time of possession in that first half where that flag happened. The Colts had 22 minutes and 6 seconds of possession in the first half. The Lions had just 7 minutes and 54 seconds in the first half. It was really tough for the Lions offense to get anything going, and therefore the defense was on the field for so much of that first half. And in my opinion, it looked like the defense really started to get a little bit gassed as that first half went on.
Yeah, I think they did. And I think you saw that on the first touchdown that the Colts had with the swing pass to Hines. He takes it in for a 20-something yard touchdown. But on that play, it wasn't anything super tricky. He kind of fakes a motion where he's going behind the quarterback, and then he changes directions. Phillip Rivers threw a nice pass to him. The Lions still had 4 guys kind of right there at about the 10-yard line, all kind of just watching each other. And I don't know if, like what you said, they had been on the field for a long time at that point in the first half. It almost seemed like fatigue just kind of set in at that point where it was, okay, I hope he makes the play. You saw 4 guys right there, and I think it might have been one of the players kind of dove out of bounds, and the other 2 players thought the initial guy was going to make the tackle, and what ended up should have been maybe a 6-7 yard reception turns into a 20-yard touchdown, which for their first score of the game, and they go on to score 2 more touchdowns in that second quarter. So I thought the second quarter, certainly, what you said, it kind of looked like being on the field for that long kind of caught up to them at a certain point, because the first quarter they did a great job of coming out strong, a couple 3-and-outs, the block punt. You got a lot of momentum, a lot of juice on that sideline, and then as the second quarter kind of progressed, Colts go out and score 20 points, which obviously a huge kind of turning point in that game.
Well, we'll hear from Matthew Stafford on why he felt like his offense wasn't able to get anything going in just a bit. We'll be back right after this break to hear from Stafford.
Love getting prices that are lower than low on food that's fresher than fresh? With the Kroger app, you can get personalized coupons on top of weekly sales and rewards like fuel points, all for prices that are lower than the everyday low. So go ahead, get lower than low. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
These past few months have been trying, but despite the setbacks, uncertainty, and challenges, one thing is certain: Michigan will recover, and Comerica is here to help our communities rise. Through our COVID-19 relief program, Comerica has donated millions to COVID-19 testing, personal protection equipment, crucial supplies, food banks, and small businesses, and we're just getting started. To learn more, visit comerica.com. Rise.
Well, Matthew Stafford, I'm sure, hoped his offense had a better day than it did. He was able to catch up with reporters after this game and talk to them about what went wrong for his team on offense. Take a look.
Too many third and longs. Obviously didn't sustain drives well enough in the first half or the second half, to be honest. Didn't run the ball as well as we can, obviously, and then just didn't play well enough in the passing game to overcome that. So it was obviously scored early, which was great, but we weren't able to be consistent on drives, and our defense was out there for long periods of time, which isn't good.
You did mention weren't running the ball well enough. I was tracking the first downs. At some point in the game, it was like 7 for 7 yards. How much freedom do you have to kind of see that trend and check out of it as the game's going on?
I think it's something you got to be consistent with. We got to keep trying to do it. That's a defensive front that really loves to rush the passer. They've got a really talented front, and you got to keep them honest. And we just didn't do a good enough job making those runs count, and make them really think about them. And that's on all of us, myself included, to make sure we're getting us in the best runs, and then we got to go out there and execute it. But just a tough physical defense that we didn't play well enough to win.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yep.
Matthew, how about the pick six? Can you just walk us through that play, what you saw?
Yeah, just didn't have good enough eyes on the nickel. I didn't see him. Obviously, that it was pretty evident when you watch it. Wish I'd have gone somewhere else, no question about it. Obviously, wish I would have held on to the ball too when 53 got it from me. 2 plays that I can't make for us to have a chance to win, especially in a game like that where we're going to have to score a bunch of points. And I wish I had those 2 plays back, no question. Obviously, I think, even if I just get sacked on the one, Prater makes that field goal, it just helps us with momentum and gets us points. And then obviously starting the next drive with a pick six is tough. I'll give our guys credit, bounced back and scored quickly on the next drive, to try to negate it. But it was just too many mistakes.
And then can you just put this loss into perspective? I mean, you won the last couple of weeks. Everyone's feeling pretty good about themselves. This one obviously didn't go well at all today, but it's one of them. It's one game at the end of it. So how do you sort of juggle the emotions of where everything is at right now, where things stand going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to lose. We put a bunch of work into it, and when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's not fun. And this one's no different. But at the same time, we gotta learn from it. We'll look at the tape, we'll figure out where we can be better, and we got a new opponent next week. We're gonna have to get ready to go to them and play well.
Yeah, hey Matthew. I'm curious, why do you feel like y'all have struggled so much at home over the last year plus?
I mean, there's nothing other than execution and trying to win the game. I mean, we just haven't won enough. I don't really, to be honest with you, pay too much attention to where we win the games. I just want to win them. And we haven't won enough, obviously, in the last couple of years, and got to get it going a little bit this year too.
Why do you also think maybe consistency has been such a problem for this team since going as far back as 18?
I think this league is tough. You know what I mean? You look week in and week out. There's wins and losses every week where you didn't expect it, quote unquote. The experts. But you got to you got to make sure that you're doing everything you can possible during the week to get ready to go play, and then you go out there and play on Sunday and try to execute as best you can. And some weeks you execute better than others, and you win the game, and other times you don't. Obviously, it's disappointing and frustrating to not win them. But as far as consistency goes, it's just everybody's got to do their job at a high level every time.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew.
Justin Rose. Hey, Matthew, you take couple of steps forward with those wins the past couple of weeks, and then it feels like you take a couple of steps backwards. How do you make sure that this doesn't keep going backwards as a leader of this team?
Oh, you got to prove yourself every week. Just because we won a couple weeks ago in Jacksonville doesn't mean we're going to go down there and beat Atlanta. And just because we beat Atlanta doesn't mean you're going to go out there and beat Indy or lose Indy. So, each week it's a prove yourself league. You got to go out there and prove yourself on Sundays, and we'll have another opportunity to do that next week.
And you and Patricia both kind of said, just wasn't our day. Is that a valuable excuse, I guess? I don't want to say excuse, but is that a valuable reason for a team not performing well?
I just don't, I think we didn't execute well enough. When you look at it, myself included, if I play like that, it's going to be tough for us to win. I'm sure that there's a lot of guys in our locker room looking at themselves in the mirror saying, if I play like that, it's going to be tough for us to win. So, if you guys want to put it on somebody, put it on me. I can't turn the ball over twice, and we got to get the ball in the end zone more.
Stafford certainly wishing he had those 2 plays back that resulted in turnovers there, the sack fumble and then the pick 6. TJ, obviously we saw a little bit of Matthew Stafford struggling out there today. What did you feel like went wrong for him?
It didn't really seem like he was really off that much until we got into the second half. Had a really nice drive to close the first half and a 2-minute drive to give him a chance to go down and get 3 points. Obviously ended with a missed field goal. I guess the second half never felt like there was a whole lot of rhythm. I think a lot of it too, I was just looking at the stats. They're just not putting themselves in good position to convert on second down and third downs. I mean, you go through the drive chart, and to start each drive, the first drive of the game, Adrian Peterson carry for 0 yards. A couple drives later, DeAndre Swift, 1st and 10 carry for -4. A couple drives later, carry for 0 yards, right? And that kind of puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback when you're facing a 2nd and 10 and 3rd and 10 and those long third down and distances where you have to go make a play. It just never really seemed like the offense really got into the rhythm. And when they did in the second half, when they come out the first drive, they go down and get the touchdown, then they come back, had a really nice chance to go score to maybe take the lead, and they end up punting the ball. False start from Jamal Agnew puts you to 3rd and 15. Those are just really hard to convert. But ultimately, I think he hit on it. He's a guy who is clearly upset with the way he played, I think, in the second half when you have back-to-back offensive plays where you drive down to the 30-yard line, sack fumble, Indy scores a touchdown, you get the ball back, very first play, pick 6. That's 2 plays where you just ran 2 plays and the Colts converted 14 points. So it's really hard to kind of come back for that. He's a guy I think we've kind of seen in every loss that the Lions had this year so far that he's probably had 1 or 2 plays that he really wants back. But the good thing is there's a lot of football left in this season. The good thing is about his attitude where he is very honest and he says, look, if I play this way, we're not going to win very many games. So he's one of the most accountable guys that I've ever played with. He's passionate about the game. I know he's going to do everything he can to kind of fix this. And that's really, I know there's not a lot of smiles in that locker room today, but when you have a guy like that who's your leader and your quarterback that takes responsibility and the accountability that he has, it's very contagious in the locker room. And like he said, there's probably not many guys in that locker room today. It doesn't all fall on him, but there's probably not many guys in that locker room today that felt like they had a winning performance.
Well, to your point about the third downs that the Lions found themselves in, that was the first thing that Stafford answered when he was asked what went wrong for the offense today, is that they found themselves in too many 3rd and longs. But he was also asked about running the ball on first down, asked if he felt like maybe he should be checking out of some of those situations. And he said no, he felt like it was about executing those first down runs that was what was going wrong rather than the actual play call themselves. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think there's a fine line. I mean, there's definitely a balance between play calling and execution. With that being said, I think there are times where, look, this Lions team, I don't know the exact stats, but when they started driving, it's 1st and 10, it almost seems like 90% of the time it's going to be a run play. And other teams, obviously, in the NFL realize that. They recognize that. You see a lot of the first downs where teams are loading the boxes. They're bringing safety pressure. They're bringing nickel pressure. They're trying to force the runs kind of back to the middle of the field, which it's kind of hard to run that up the middle of the field in defenses today. So I think with that being said, though, you trust the coaches. You trust Darrell Bevel and all the offensive coaches to make sure that you're not having overwhelming tendencies where, hey, first down, we're running the ball 90% of the time. Okay, we got to switch it up. Let's hit them with the play-action pass. Because that one big play that you can have to open up a drive where it's 1st and 10, maybe you hit a play action for 20 yards. Sometimes that's the spark that you need as an offense to, let's go, boys. Now we're rolling. Now we're running down the field. Now you got the confidence you need. When you're running for those 1-2 yard gains, it's not all the play calling. Certainly today, we hit on it early in the show, where the offensive line is probably the position group on offense today that's saying, you know what, guys, that's on us. We got Stafford sacked 5 times when we ran the ball for 8 yards with our running backs. They certainly have to play better, which they've been playing pretty good most of the year. With that being said, though, it's definitely a fine line of the coaches understanding, okay, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's find a way to get the ball in the playmakers' hands for explosive plays. And certainly the guys up front, everybody on the offensive, just executing the play that's called.
Well, the Lions were at 500 coming into this game. Now they dropped to 3-4. You look at the score of this game, 41-21. Obviously, the Lions lose this one by a lot. But TJ, walking away from this game and how the Lions have been playing, and then bringing this game into the picture, where would you say this team is at almost halfway through the season here, as you kind of assess what they've been able to put together these last couple of weeks, especially coming out of the bye? Are they really in as tough of a position as it seemed like looking at the score from this game?
No, I think it's definitely not as bad as you might have thought maybe 4 weeks ago when they were sitting at 1-3. It's probably not as good as maybe you thought coming off the 2-game win streak, but I think their record accurately portrays where they are right now. They're a 3-4 football team, and it certainly could be a lot better. If they get a couple plays early in the season against the Bears and the Saints, the whole season looks a little bit different. But they're not. They're definitely. You look around the league and you see some teams that are sitting at 2-5 and 3-4, and you say they're just not a good football team. The Lions, in my mind, are still a good football team, and they've got a pretty favorable schedule coming up the next couple weeks. I know Minnesota just beat Green Bay, which Minnesota, much like the Atlanta Falcons team they just played last week, has a chance to be explosive and beat anybody in the league when they're playing good football. And then you get Washington again, which their record doesn't really portray how good they are as well. But you're sitting here at 3-4 right now, almost to the halfway point. I think the focus is correct what we did today. I don't think this was a game where you look at the scoreboard and say, wow, they just got throttled and they're just a terrible team. It was closer than what the scoreboard said, obviously, with the 2 turnovers that turned out to be huge at the end of the game. But you're almost to the halfway point. You find a way to get back to 4-4 next week against Minnesota. You got a whole lot of football left in the season. Anything can happen. They're just a team that I think they know when they play good football, they can beat anybody. When they play like they did today, they can lose to anybody. So you got to find that fine balance and that consistency moving forward.
Well, yeah, the Lions were just down 6 points when that sack fumble happened. They were very much still in that game, and then it just kind of got away from them after that. But there was a pretty big play in the beginning of this game that really showed what the Lions were capable of. It was that blocked punt that set up the Lions' first touchdown of the game. We saw some strong plays from the defense and the special teams. TJ, walk us through what you saw on this blocked punt.
Yeah, definitely not a special teams expert by any means. I had a lot of experience on the field goal and PAT team, but Miles Killebrew is a guy who for all those young guys watching out there and college football players, you want to find a way to your NFL career. Watch what Miles Killebrew has done his whole career. He's really been a special teams ace, and it goes back even the first play of the game. With the opening kickoff, he runs down and absolutely puts a pop on the kick returner, and you could see the whole sideline just kind of get juiced up, and that's all it takes sometimes is just to watch a guy make a big play and you hear the pads popping and okay, we're ready to go, boys. But Miles Killebrew is just he's that guy that comes to work every day, and whether he's asked to play safety, linebacker, special teams, kickoff, punt, whatever it does, he does it at a high level, and that was a huge play in the game as well. Obviously to start the game, getting the I think it was the Colts' second drive, if I'm not mistaken, and to go out there, get the early lead with your offense. I mean, that's usually when you get that type of turnover, turns out to be good things for your offense, which they did capitalize on. They did have, they did score off that, but just great execution. I like the aggressive call from the Lions to go after the punt early in the game. Maybe it's a sign of things to come going forward. Maybe we'll see a little bit more special teams creativity down the line. But Miles is a guy that you count on, you rely on him to get the job done every time he's on the field, and he had a lot of big plays today on special teams.
Well, shout out to the Killebrew family as well. They were all in the stands for this game, so pretty special for them to be able to witness that big play in the game that did end up being our play of the game here on the Postgame show. TJ, I do want to get your perspective on having fans in the stands today. Obviously, just 500 friends and family were in attendance. But for people who weren't able to be in the building today, what did you think of the atmosphere with having a little bit of an audience today?
I think we're slowly kind of building back to what NFL football feels like. Certainly, we were here for the Saints game, which was very weird and kind of quiet and just kind of spooky almost. Honestly, today coming back and watching, I know there was a lot of friends and family here, kind of took me back to my junior year at college at Eastern Michigan. We played the day after Thanksgiving at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and there was maybe about 300 family and friends in the stands, and it was quiet and kind of spooky. But it's great for these for the family especially. You know how long the football season is and the training camp, and for the guys to see their wives and kids and parents to come out and watch the game. I know it means a lot to the guys because you could have some really long days of practice and traveling on the weekends, and anytime you get to spend time with your kids and your wife and your parents is always special. So I know they probably obviously wish they could have won the game today, but having the support in the stands and people cheering for you, I think definitely it means a lot to the players.
Well, the Lions are not even halfway through their season yet, so there's plenty to still be played. Me and TJ will discuss that in just a little bit. We'll be back right after this quick break.
Love getting prices that are lower than low on food that's fresher than fresh? With the Kroger app, you can get personalized coupons on top of weekly sales and rewards like fuel points, all for prices that are lower than the everyday low. So go ahead, get lower than low. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
DTE Energy customers can get their share of huge lifetime energy cost savings. How? By using our website. The Oslin's new programmable thermostat saved them a bundle. And their new efficient furnace earned them a hefty rebate. All over Michigan, people like the Oslins are saving. Why not you? There are always new ways to save at dteenergy.com/saveenergy. DTE Energy.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions post-game show presented by Kroger. I'm Tori Petrie here at Ford Field. We are wrapping up our post-game coverage as we look ahead to what the Lions still have in front of them as we are only through week 8 here in the NFL. The Lions are at 3-4, but there's still a lot of football left to be played. TJ, one thing that certainly sticks out to me is that next week they should hopefully get Everson Griffen in their lineup, who they traded for this week with the Dallas Cowboys. He's a guy that you have played against. What are the Lions getting in Everson Griffen?
Well, first of all, I think it's perfect timing because you get to go against his old team in Minnesota, which I'm sure being a guy that, left Green Bay, came to Detroit, anytime you got to play your former team, obviously the emotions are high and you want to go obviously perform at a high level. Everson's a guy that I played, seems like almost 15 times I played against Everson Griffen between being in Green Bay and being in Detroit. He's one of the most explosive guys, I think, as a defensive end coming off the edge. He's an effort guy. You look at some film of him playing in Dallas earlier this year, and I think he had 3 or 3.5 sacks so far in the year, and a lot of those really came from the second effort. of rushing around the quarterback and using his speed and kind of tracking guys down, which always it doesn't really look the prettiest way to kind of get a sack, but it's those are obviously huge plays in the game. He's a guy I always hated blocking him, just to be honest. I hated blocking him because he was fast, he was quick twitched, he had great change of direction and the effort. You knew he was never going to take a play off. And for this Lions team to have him come in and help down, I think he's going to be more of probably a third down pass rush type specialist. You add him to the group of Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara, who had another sack today, is really having kind of a breakout year. You add him to that group of guys. Not only is it going to make teams focus on him, it's going to take probably the double teams off of Romeo. It's going to take the double teams off of Trey, because now instead of having one or two guys that you have to worry about, you're going to have three or four, and I think it's going to pay huge dividends. And I know, obviously, looking at Everson's Instagram earlier in the week, can't repeat exactly what he said on this show, but he's excited. I think he's excited to get back in this division where he's very familiar with playing against the Bears and playing against the Packers and long rivalries with all those guys. He's going to be a good addition, and I think he's a guy that anytime you get traded, which I never had to go through, I think anytime you get traded, though, there's always that extra boost of, all right, these guys are doubting me. You always want to prove people wrong. It's just an extra chip to add on the shoulder, and Everson's definitely a guy who, playing against him, watching him so far this year, has got a lot of juice left in the tank.
Well, I definitely think Matthew Stafford will be glad to have him on his team and not facing off against him.
Too many times, I think 16, Matthew Stafford was
16 sacks by Everson Griffen.
And I'm sure Matthew Stafford is happy to have him on the other side of the field now, because he's a guy who he wreaked havoc. I mean, when we played him in Green Bay, he wreaked havoc. When I was in Detroit, he wreaked havoc. He was always the number one guy that when you get to those, Wednesday meetings, all right, third down, 97. That's the guy we got to stop. So hopefully he brings the same juice and the same energy to this locker room that he's had his whole career.
Well, certainly an improved pass rush is what the Lions hope they are getting out of bringing in Everson Griffen. But they've still got 9 games left to play in this season, TJ. What do you think they need to do in order to turn things around after this loss to the Colts?
You have to continue to build on the good things you're doing, and specifically talking about defensively, doing a really nice job of stopping the run. I know Indy had a couple runs late there in the fourth quarter when the game was out of hand, but that went for big plays. But really, the Lions defense did a really nice job of stopping the run today. I think that's one thing that, when you look at the first 3 games, you're saying, oh boy, it's going to be a rough season, and they did a great job of turning it around and correcting that. And really, for 3 games now, they've done a good job of making the opposing offenses one-dimensional. So defensively, it continues to be stop the run. It's not going to get any easier. Dalvin Cook had 160 yards today against the Packers and 3 touchdowns, so it's obviously another big challenge coming up. And offensively, it's limiting the mistakes. Too many penalties, too many negative yardage plays, whether it's the sacks or the -2, -3 yard runs. And the turnovers. I think every game they've lost this year has been really one kind of bad play from the offense that turns out to be the difference in winning and losing. But I'd like to see, offensively, just a little bit more creative use of the playmakers that you have. I'd like to see DeAndre Swift get more involved, whether it's I think he had 6 carries today, getting the ball in his hands more, whether it's in the receiving game or in the rushing game, not just running, a dive or an ISO play, but getting him on the edge and let him take advantage of the athleticness that he has. Obviously, Kenny Golladay going out today hurt, but continue to feed him the ball, because he's a guy we talked about all year that he makes a lot of big plays. So offensively, I think it's going to really come down to, let's stop playing the bully ball where we're trying to get 3-4 yards and kind of push the putt. Let's try to really utilize the playmakers that we have and showcase them and go out with the explosive plays. And we don't need these 15-play drive. Let's go score in 3 plays. Let's be explosive. Let's go out and throw the ball deep. Let's get some explosive plays and get this thing going and really put the other team on their heels. I think that's going to be a big part going forward, that you kind of challenge the coaches to say, hey, let's come up with some, let's be crafty here. Let's use these guys and let's start being a little bit more explosive and more unpredictable.
How doable do you feel like it is for the Lions to get to a winning record?
It's definitely doable. It's right in front of them. It's right in front of them. I think today, obviously, tough lesson where you're playing a team that I thought, the Lions and the Colts were very similar in how they play football. The mistakes obviously cost them the game today, but going to a Minnesota team that's 2-5, not a lot of confidence around that program, although they did beat the Packers today, which everybody knows Green Bay's. They've got a really solid team this year. That's going to be. It's not a gimme win. It's a division rival. Anytime you could throw out the records. Anytime you play an NFC North game, it doesn't matter. And I think the Vikings proved that today, being 1-5 and going to play the 5-1 Packers, coming out with a win at Lambeau. So you throw out the records. You just got to go play tough, hard-nosed football, and then you get by this week. You got Washington sitting in front of you. The next couple weeks are favorable for you. So if this is the time that you prove to yourself and you prove to everybody else that you start to separate yourself. Either you're a contender and you're going to go on a run, or you're just kind of blah, blah, 500 football team. So I think this next game, these next 2 games are really going to show us a lot about what kind of football team, what kind of team these guys want to be. Because I think we all know when they're playing as good as they can beat anybody in this league. When they play like they did today, they can lose to anybody. So this next game, particularly NFC North rival against the Vikings, is going to show us a lot about where this football team is going to go.
Well, we will find out what happens. TJ, thank you so much for your insight here on the Postgame Show.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
All right, guys, that does it for us here on the Detroit Lions Postgame Show presented by Kroger. We appreciate you sticking with us, listening to those press conferences and that analysis. We will be back here next week with the pregame show before the Lions take on those Vikings. We will see you then. Thanks so much for tuning in.